easy in the beginning when you start dating somebody. It's easy in the beginning when you first get married. People think, oh, love will last a lifetime. Love can last a lifetime. God intends love to last a lifetime. And today's society without God, I think it's absolutely irrelevant for marriage. And many people think it's irrelevant for marriage because they look at individuals running from one relationship to the next, and there's no commitment, there's no devotion. We have completely lost the understanding and the value of heritage of a family. The family is the one thing in the Word of God that God says is our heritage, that He gives us as a heritage. There's so much in the family. So much in the family structure, and I believe that's why Satan tries to attack the family so much. And when we're looking at seeing a marriage, it can either be hell on earth or it can become heaven on earth. It can become better and better as the years go on, or it can become more and more difficult. There's many times people try to make marriage and relationships so difficult in the sense of trying to understand them. There's that one book that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, or vice versa. But when we really come down to it, all people have four basic needs. Four basic needs. If we want to simplify life and simplify what makes a marriage and a family solid, we can bring it all down to four basic needs. Everybody needs to feel loved. Everybody needs to feel appreciated. Everybody needs to feel respected and valued. When we're looking at suicide, when we're looking at struggles in marriage, when we're looking at any issues, it all comes back down to those four base cores of who we are as a person, needing to feel loved, appreciated, needed, valued, and respected. So in a marriage, if we continue from the beginning to pour into those values in our spouse, in our children, it will build a solid foundation for our relationship in a marriage, and it will build a solid foundation in our relationship in the core structure of our children as we continue to feed those four base needs of our lives. That doesn't mean that struggles won't come, things won't hit. We're all being perfected. When we're looking at what makes a marriage last, one of my daughters said to me a few years ago, she's hung around the ministry, growing up in the ministry with us, because we always had our children with us. Even in ministry, we felt we never wanted them to feel like ministry or God was taking us away from them. So they were a part of everything. We were a part of everything in each other's lives. And growing up in the ministry, they've seen a lot. They've grown up a lot. But they've gained a lot of wisdom and a lot of incredible experience also. And my daughter told me one day, she said, "Mama, I think it comes down to this one fact in every marriage issue. It comes down to selfishness. People being selfish. It's I. What I want, what I need, what I demand, what you're not doing for me, you're not meeting my needs." And every issue in marriage, it can come down to selfishness, or it can just come down to not knowing the core values that make a relationship strong, that make it last, that make it endure. And when we're looking at love, Christ said in the Word of God, He says that we need to lay down our life for one another. And that's where I believe outside of God, marriage can't work. It can't. Because there's no way outside of God that we can come to a place that we can love our enemies, do good to those that harm us. And sometimes we can feel in a marriage we're can be conflicting with each other. There's no way we can lay down our life for each other if we don't have the love of God inside of us. It is impossible. But with God and getting into His Word and learning His Word and applying our life and establishing our life on the Word of God, it does give us biblical principles that help us be able to establish a solid marriage that can get better as time goes on. Now, just because we understand these things, we can do all of these things, but life is still going to happen. Life happens to all of us. Though we would love a perfect world and we would love to all be perfected, we're not. Not a single one. You're not perfected. I'm not perfected. The Word of God says that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. The Word of God says that we need to renew our mind, that we need to grow in the things of God and perfect ourselves and our lives. The Word of God says that we may have lived in some of these ways before that were of sin and destruction, and they'll create destruction in our life, and that's why He calls them sin, because they will create destruction in our life. But when we're living our life day to day, sometimes people are drawn away by temptation. Rather than attacking someone who's fallen and drawn away by temptation, maybe we can say, Lord, lead us not into temptation. Lead them not into temptation, but deliver them from evil. Maybe we can become each other's advocate. Maybe we can become the one that fights and covers one another. Maybe we can be the one that picks each other up when we fall, when we stumble. And we look at a best friend that way, but shouldn't our marriage partner be that? Not just a contract, not just what they can do for me, but a relationship that can work through, believe in, grab hold of the things of God. There is nothing that is impossible for God. Absolutely nothing. People can be delivered out of anything, any circumstance, any sin. I was doing a study in Matthew chapter 1. In chapter 1, it just speaks of all the names of the genealogy of Christ. And when you read it at first, you think this is so boring. All it is, at a first glance, is the names of Christ. But in that first chapter, it describes the incorruptible seed and the journey of an incorruptible seed that went through from the beginning of time all the way to the present, all the way to the end of Revelations in Matthew chapter 1. It speaks of how the seed will make it through and survive incorruptibly through any circumstance that life may throw at us. It doesn't mean that it'll always be easy. It means that when it gets hard, we have got to apply and walk in the Word of God, in faith, in our confession that He teaches us, that if we call those things are not as though they are. Sometimes you can be blindsided with your child, with your relationship, with your spouse, completely blindsided. How many times do we end up facing circumstances in our life that we didn't have a clue? We couldn't have prayed about it beforehand. We can be full of faith and power when we're going through when we're flying high. But it's every single one of us face mountaintops, and every single one of us have to walk through a valley of death. Every one of us. Christ had to. And He said that even though we are in Him, expect persecution, expect adversity, expect attack. But He said the weapons of your warfare are mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. He said that no weapon formed against us can prosper. Does that mean that circumstances won't hit our life? Oh my gosh, yes, circumstances will hit our life. They'll happen. It happens to everybody. But the difference between circumstances hitting our life and us being overcome by them, or circumstances and adversities hitting our life and us becoming overcomers. That's the difference that the Word of God can make in every one of our lives. You can make it through the valley. You can make it through the storm. You can make it through adversity. You can make it when you're worn. And He can give you the strength to take each step, each moment, each day. If it's just one moment at a time, if it's one day at a time, you look at that moment, you look at that day, you grab hold of what God gives you for that moment or that day, and don't you let go. And if you will hold on to His word, and you will hold on to His promise, you can make it through the storms in your life. And you will come out better instead of bitter. You will come out stronger instead of weaker, because love never fails.